Okay. Hi everyone, and welcome to today's Green Gown Awards Exchange webinar. The title of this exchange is Sustainability Qualities, Learning, Not Listening, and it will last between 30 minutes and an hour depending on discussions we're hoping for lots of. Thank you all for registering, and thanks also to Lucy Atala from the University of Wales Trinity St David for leading this webinar today. My name is Nina and I am the Events and Communications Officer here at the EAUC. This particular exchange webinar is part of a series of Green Gown Award exchange webinars which feature and highly commended institutions from the 2015 awards. More information about the Green Gown Awards can be found on the EAUC website and on the Sustainability Exchange. So just a little bit of housekeeping to go over. I'm hoping that everyone can hear me okay. As said, for the time being, I have placed all of your microphones on mute to avoid any background noise. But throughout the webinar, there will be an opportunity to both ask questions and contribute to the discussion. So please just take your microphones off mute as and when you want to, and you can do that by clicking on the microphone button just to the right-hand side of your name in the box in the top right-hand corner. If you don't have a working microphone today and you want to ask any questions or contribute, please feel free to type any questions into the chat box, which is in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and either Lucy or myself can read those out as we go through. And similarly, if you've got any technical issues throughout, please just use the chat box in the bottom corner, and I will try to help as we go through. Just so you all know, this webinar is being recorded and it will be uploaded as a resource later on today onto the Sustainability Exchange and the EAUC website. Okay, that's it from me for now. So I'm just going to pass the speaker over to Lucy so that she can get started, and then we'll pass to you.
Thank you, Nina. I hope everybody's there and can hear everything. It's quite. I can see Mary. She's eating. But I can't see whether any of the rest of you are listening. So I'm just going to assume you are. I'm also trying to get out my PowerPoint, which has come. Nina, is it can make that happen?
Yes, should be. I've passed the take the presenter. Just bear with a moment. It should have.
Okay. There it is. Okay.
I should now have. You now have all the access. Yeah. Okay.
I do. Okay, thank you. All right, so thank you for coming to this discussion, everybody. I'm hoping that it's going to actually be a discussion. I don't really want it to be, me pontificating about anything in any way. This is simply me sharing practice, and I'm sure you've got practice to share as well. So I'd like it to be very much an exchange, as Nina suggested. So be interactive if possible and informal, and so feel free to chime in whenever you want to and contribute. I have got slides there, but we can be flexible, and I will follow the slides, but we can be flexible about that. Let's take this session as that a flexible, informal session in which we're all sharing practice as much as possible. So I'm an anthropologist, and I'm talking from the perspective of altering anthropology curriculum delivery here on campus in Wales, and what I've been developing with the students. The reason why I'm doing this, I think, is because sustainability is often considered to be problematic, as something quite problematic to in the humanities. So sustainability is typically seen as a sort of solution-seeking, change of technologies. So how is it applicable to the humanities? And people seem to get quite cross about having changed their courses to reflect notions of sustainability, as if that's in some way going to degrade their discipline or get in the way of what they're trying to. So I'm approaching this from a different angle. This isn't about content necessarily. This is about delivery methods. So what I'm suggesting is that sustainability shouldn't only be thought of in terms of measuring carbon and so on, and recycling, but that it's actually a way of thinking and a way of being, and that in terms of education, this can be not curriculum content, although that could be something that we all want to do, but in how we expect our students to be and how we deliver content. So that's sort of the preamble on that, really, and that's why the title then is Education for Sustainability. So it's about creating sustainably fit words rather than subject matter. Okay, and then the subtitle is Learning, Not Listening, and so you'll see what I mean by that in a minute. Every time I try and move the slide on, I get a pop-up box saying, "Do you want to download external content?"
Right. Shall I? If I take the,
your reins on it, and I'll just go slide change. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Brilliant. Yeah, okay. So change of slide, please. All right. So the kind of question that I'd like to circulate around right now and to share in terms of what I've been doing is what and how should people be learning today? So that's the kind of key question that I'm looking at. The next slide, please. So to approach that question then, we just need to sort of backtrack slightly and look at how humanities is typically delivered or has traditionally been delivered. And I think we're probably all aware that there's some criticism of how it's been delivered and that traditional methods can be accused of being passive, being primarily about listening, is a sort of distanced process, and that's why I've put that picture up there, so that there's an individual who's supposed to be the expert standing in the centre, and the students have to listen to what the expert is saying, probably without interruption, mainly, to hear that information and to assimilate it in some way, to, not necessarily regurgitate it later, but something similar to that later. And so the process is a typically passive one, and it's a one-way process where information is acquired, and that position is later measured through writing. So typically in the humanities, a very cerebral activity, and pretty much exclusively that, with some exceptions of some disciplines, but I think in general sense we can sort of say that's the passive, that's the package that students have. They come into a lecture theatre, they expected to receive the information and they're expected to know it through having heard it. Okay, next slide please. And so then we need to ask ourselves really, why is this the case? Why have we decided that this is how learning is best achieved, and how the book we're taking through the process, who will be our graduates, should be trained? And I think underpinning that is that learning is assumed to be cerebral. It's supposed to occur in the head, in the brain, and that passive acquisition is the best route for people in higher education, starting in higher education anyway. Okay, next slide, please. Ken Robinson, who I'm sure you all know and is a kind of little bit of a hero of mine, I might just be in love with him, I don't know, believes that the reason for this is because education was designed around creating a population of clerk accountants, and that was because those were the skills that were necessary for industrialization. And one could argue that they have been very useful to us, but currently now we're in a very different situation. We don't have the same skill set need, and perhaps we don't need to create a passive population of people who aren't that questioning, who have these skills necessary for industrialization. Possibly we need different kinds of people, and so with that comes this change in education. So next slide, please. So what do students need to learn? Well, I don't know, so I'm not going to make any suggestions here, other than I think it'd be quite nice if we had a degree called Future Studies. I have no idea what that would look like, but I just like the title, so I'm going with that. So I'm not suggesting that I know what subjects are relevant, and you know, I sort of said that at the beginning, so I'm continuing to reiterate that. But what I think become increasingly clear is that we have today, this year today, perhaps won't be relevant by the time students graduate. And we can see that there have been new jobs created. Certainly, you know, in the last 5 years, I can think of quite a few jobs that have been created that I would never have conceived of myself, you know. And that begs the question then, are we supporting our graduates to be able to go into those jobs by the way that we teach them? With all of that in mind, then, I'd like to propose that we need to think differently about how we teach rather than what we teach. Okay, next slide. And so I'm sure you're all very aware of the recent documents, maybe written by Sterling and Longhurst and the Education for Sustainable Development Goals, that suggest that nowadays students need to be, and there's a list here of qualities, rather than students should know about qualities in the student as individuals, as people, that need to be encouraged. So increasingly students should be encouraged to be solution seekers, to be empowered to be solution seekers indeed, to work collaboratively and to be able to know how to do that, to be able to be confident presenters and leaders, both confident in their knowledge, so discipline there in training, also in their abilities, so that they should have multiple abilities that they can then use to enact changes, and that they should be critical practitioners. And this is the one that I particularly like, that students are not passive anymore, but should be questioning what they're receiving, and also should be very much part of creating their own educational packages. So they, in some ways, degrees become bespoke degrees around a discipline that support the student to get what they think they need to know about for their own direction, and that they're reflexively aware, not just reflective, but reflexive, in that they are thinking about themselves as part of the process all the time and what they bring to the table, and that they are sensitive, inclusive and independent learners. And there's a picture there of one of my students who recently went out and spent some time in Zimbabwe, and worked out there as an applied anthropologist for about a month, looking very happy. So we're aware that documentation agrees that this is what students should be coming out with. So rather than coming out with a qualification in anthropology or a degree in anthropology, they also should be coming out as individuals who we can say are solution seekers, know about collaboration, can present information, do show leadership skills. So this is about qualities that are about sustainability, and so we'll see why that's about sustainability perhaps in a minute, or we could have a discussion about that maybe. Okay, next slide. So this is this then, you know, brings me to the how of learning. That learning, it is about knowing a subject, but it's about a development of a personality, a development of an individual alongside understanding about a subject. And typically we see in our, you know, quite dull documentation words like delivery methods. This is what we're talking about now, that it's about how the environment in which we create learning rather than what a student should know about. Please. So currently, I actually work in the humanities. Do you? You could student. Okay. Maybe then. Right. I've only got Mary to go on because she's nodding at me, and I. I can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can now. Yes. Yeah.
I'm working for environment, health and safety at workplace.
Okay.
Running distance learning MSCs.
Ah, okay.
So it is related. It's not quite humanities, but we do work with staff. And
Yeah.
behavioral safety is going that way a little bit.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
People, psychology of people in order to comply.
Okay, well, you can bring a lot to the discussion, I think. Yes, please. So for the other people who are listening, do you want to just type in, if you don't want to speak, what areas you're working with? Oh, I can typing. Anybody else there?
So we have one in from Quinn, who said she studied in the humanities and now works ESD within the NUS. And one from Afua, who says she works within the university's sustainability team.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we've got a diverse bunch. All right, well, I'll continue then. Okay, so current structures then rely on old how. So those are the things that I mentioned at the beginning, which is this sort of didactic lecture exchange with a sort of kind of passive and which perpetuates a type of passivity in the learner because it's about information exchange. You're telling somebody what they should know and they just sort of receive it and then they have to know it. So there's no real questioning about that. There's no real engagement with the subject. That, and as I've already said, that kind of passivity sort of fails or is accused of failing to adequately prepare graduates for the world as it is now. Okay, these current structures, education is currently structured around single disciplines, and actually we all get very tribal about our disciplines as well, quite uncomfortably sometimes. And this is where I think my biggest problem is, where we learn about. So, sort of, I use that as a phrase now, learning about, as if it's one word. We learn about what others have done, learn about what others we should do. We learn about. And so typically in anthropology, I teach, or through the I've been teaching, I've taught students about what other anthropologists have done, as if to suggest that what other anthropologists have done, knowing what other anthropologists have done, will prepare you to be an anthropologist, which is an interesting kind of distance from actually being an anthropologist. And so we prepare students to be proficient in one skill or one subject and measure this through writing. Big problem with that. But I do come up against a lot of people who with me challenging that, because they think that is the most robust method of understanding if somebody has knowledge. Well, I'll challenge that directly because I don't think that's the case at all. And very results focused and so literally measured by ability to write, and then are valued by society by their ability to write. Now, so this is typically for the humanities. Okay, so next slide, please. What I am developing here in Wales is what I'm calling an immersive approach, an immersive educational system, which relies on inquiry rather than lectures and rather than that sort of didactic, typical, traditional process. I'm using a setup in which I immerse the students in a problem and to find their own way through the problem without having lectures from me. In fact, they give lectures to me, completely turned everything on its head. And the kind of underpinning of that is that they will be actively engaged in creating the class. They will be kind of forced in a way to seek solutions to the problems that I pose for them. And that with that, I will see them performing rather than just read an essay later at a distance, but that their mark and their assessment will come through me actually watching them, researching the problem that I've given them to sort of find a solution to. So for me as an individual, that takes a lot more work because I'm with them a lot more. Students and them suddenly became like over. I spend a lot of time with them and we work together. I don't come and give a lecture and go away again. You know, I'm with them constantly for about a month every day, you know, going over different ideas and so on. And the aim of that is that we become together, all of us as a group, completely kind of absorbed in doing. So the students don't have another class to go to. They don't go and find castles or something alongside, you know, development. They just themselves in the one thing that we're engrossed upon, and work together in what I call my anthropology lab, which is a place in which people can be as creative as possible. They research together with this immersed intensive exposure. And in doing that, well, next slide, let's unfold this a bit further. Then this immersive method means that the students, right from the word go, are asked to approach certain issues and are encouraged to be the solution seeker. So they're not waiting for me to tell them the answer to the problem or the right way to go about things. They are the people who have to work out how to solve this problem. They're the individuals who, from the word go, are considered to be researchers. So instead of being students, they join the research community almost immediately. So I'm talking about undergraduates here. This is not postgraduate study, which means I hand the reins over to them for their education. It's up to them to be in charge of the level that they engage with this. It's up to me to spoon feed them or to help them along the way in the typical sense. I'll be with them constantly, giving them directional pointers, but I won't be saying you have to know this, you have to know that. I'll be hoping that they will bring things to me. So this immersive education means spending extended periods of time exploring a topic or a concept. So the module that you're seeing pictures of here is called Materialities in Anthropology, and the students were given a concept to explore and they could all approach it in a different way. They were free, completely free, to do whatever they wanted in it. The ending idea with this is that students will know about the topic that they're exploring through actually doing stuff together. So rather than sitting just taking notes and listening to what I think is relevant, they get to explore and research using the internet there in the room, in the lab, or discussing with each other, or going up to the library and bringing books back, or having a row with each other, which did happen regularly, or supporting each other, saying, oh, I found out this. Would this help you with the direction you're going? They learn through doing. Draws research into the curriculum. So increasingly we're being asked here in this institution to allow students to be part of our research. So my research is looking at how water shapes humanity. And so I'm helping the students through this module with materialities to look at the material world and how that explores humanity. So that and how that informs humanity. So they're coming into the research community with me directly. And they're increasingly asked to seek solutions to these issues that I've posed for them, which means that they're the motor of their own learning. They are the people who drive the classes. Next slide, please. So the structure to the module was that they had to attend to one topic or question throughout the block without any other classes to get in the way. They've day contact time with tasks to complete the following day. So they've got to keep the ball rolling. There's no lying down and thinking about an essay in 6 weeks' time and being very thirsty, which is what students tend to be here. This is about keeping going all the time. This is like being in the workplace, like being part of a research team. You've got something to keep going with. So contact time was filled with activity and not these passive didactic lectures. Okay, next slide, please. Module then in a bit more detail and what the students came up with. So I told you already it's called Materialities in Anthropology, and that slide reminds you of that title. Okay, next slide, please. So we had 4 consecutive hours. So this is the test case of the module. We had 4 consecutive hours. Typically here we have a 1 hour or a 2 hour lecture slot. To have a 4 hour slot, 4 hours per day, was quite a radical departure for here. In the first lecture with the students, I simply did housekeeping. And then I took over the second lecture where I told them about my research. So I just explained to them about my research. I gave them a PowerPoint. And after that, for the following weeks, each student had to do a lecture. So they had to perform an hour lecture to the rest of the class. They got no marks for that. They were not assessed for that. A bit, about that and terrified. So say that they had to do it, but I suggested that it would be useful to them if they did. And so for the first half of the term, the students researched topics and covered the lectures. Week, midterm, so that's after about a month. And then the second half of the term, we were in the lab together for the whole time, where they were devoted to creating a project. Okay, slide, please. So the question that we were asking were, how do relationships with the material world make us human? So the core themes were porosity, blending, and boundaries. Now, these are really important themes because there's a big political movement in humanities that is starting to question whether humans should see the material world as a resource, and whether seeing the material as a resource is the part of the problem that has got us to where we are today. So what we could loosely call the abuse of the planet is in association with the fact that we think we are walking on it, using it, rather than noticing that we are part of a bigger web of relationships. So when we're looking for solutions to the situation that we find ourselves in, if we continue to see ourselves as separate from the planet, then we are continuing to perpetuate a mindset that is perhaps not allowing us to work well with the rest of the world. So this is actually a really deeply rooted political perspective that asks the student to try and let the materials of the world have a voice by understanding that humans are materials, that the water that we pollute is the same water that runs through us, that it's the water that becomes us, and the same with the food that we eat, and the same with the way that we use other materials for architecture and for planning our towns and our cities. So the core themes of porosity, blending, and boundaries are all in association with trying to remind the students that we are part of a bigger process and that we are blended with it. We're not separate from it. We're not on the earth, we are the earth. Which a lot of the students actually find really difficult to conceive of, but anyway, so that's interesting as a research paper for myself. So all the content is about reconsideration of human engagement with the material world through exploration of how substances behave with humans. So how does the water behave with us? How does the water provoke us to behave? Turns everything on its head and forces the students to putting the human at the hierarchy, playing field between the human and the material world, so that we have to engage with each other equally. And that's staring at you if you're looking at the picture of James in the PowerPoint. James is trying to understand something about water. I made all the students go and sit in the stream. I've got a stream running through the campus, and to listen to the water, to sit in the water and actually feel how the water pushes you and what the water does and where the water moves and where it eddies around and so on. And he came back quite about how noisy water was and how pushy it was. He just hadn't kind of recognised that before. And this is him trying to actually understand something more about water. Okay, moving on. I was empowered that they could go in any direction that they wanted to understand more about these core concepts that I was asking them to consider. And that was to draw the students towards their identity of researcher and to empower them to not make them think that I was the expert, but to recognise that they could be experts as much as us. So that's an important point for them to recognise that they can do that, and to create a research community at undergraduate level where the students are all working collaboratively but also independently at the same time. Okay, next slide. I think up because time's going on. Thank you. Okay, I'm going over some things I've already said here. So this about the students' lecture, we don't actually need to slide. Next slide, please. And so the project time that we did in the second half of the course then was, I said to the students they needed to create a exhibition piece or a visual representation of one of the ideas of the course material, from the course materials that they'd been exploring. So to get away from reliance on the written word exclusively. Now this was hard for me to mark because this challenged me because I'm used to marking written word. So this was difficult. But it was equally difficult for the student because they had to think differently about the ideas. How I said to them, how would you visually represent for a member of the public wants to understand the notion of porosity, the notion of blending, this notion of interconnectivity, and this notion that the material world is on an equal level. How would you visually represent that? So forget writing a paper about it or answering an essay question using another anthropologist's ideas. How would you do it? Empower them to come over with that. Now, to be honest with you, if somebody had given that to me as an undergraduate, I probably would have cried and run home because I don't think I could have done it. So I was quite nervous to see what the students would come out with, but they rose to the challenge in ways that I couldn't have expected, and I was genuinely moved by what they came up with. So one student here she wanted to grow things out of rubbish, to blend the world with what might be considered non-organic stuff. So she went to the rubbish dump and collected a whole load of rubbish and then created this extraordinary Heath Robinson affair of plants. Okay, slide, please. Brittney then who's got some threads that she's making, she decided to create a necklace out of some threads in the same way that some Samburu people in Africa do. Ollie wanted to look at the carbon molecule and started to create a sculpture. You can just see there on the shelf that he's working, circle out of organic materials. He wanted to look right down at a molecular level at how we're all interconnected with each other. Okay, next slide, please. Lucinda and Rosemary had been to Zimbabwe and had seen some cave and rock art when they were there, and Lucinda decided to make rotations of those images by using the rubbish that was thrown away on the from the campus Starbucks. So you can see that she's playing with light. She recognised that light was very different in Africa, and that people understand light very differently in Africa because we can have electric light. And so she was playing around with how shadows move. So you can see there on the slide that she's made out of rubbish some little sculptures that if you look at the shadow you can see a tiny rhinoceros, a little other creature, and a person. I think the next slide shows it a little bit better. How out of little bits of rubbish that are all sort of scrunched together and tied with string that looked at sort of there on the table look like nothing very much, but if you look through back at the shadow on the board you can see a depiction that she has kind of copied from the cave art that she saw in Zimbabwe. So here she's playing around with the notions of what is rubbish and what isn't rubbish, and also with light, which is she's talking about materiality and immateriality. Okay, next image. He decided to make bioplastic. So Kenny decided he'd fallen in love with plastic and that plastic had a very bad name. Now, so that's quite contentious in terms of sustainability, but he reminded us all that plastic was originally invented to stop people using animal products like rhino horn. So it's got a very interesting beginning to it, plastic. And so he decided to make bioplastic, and he made a light out of bioplastic that we cooked up in the lab. Now that light worked. I think the next slide shows it working. No, so he was playing around with plastic, with light, with energy, with all sorts of different ideas within this piece. Okay, next image. It is working. There's light working. Better image. I should do that. Okay. Tristan made a copper rib cage. He's playing around with the body and how there's copper in the body and how we're blended to the world that we consider outside ourselves through the amount of copper that runs through us. Next slide, please. Oh, in the end, he made this rib cage, which he put a plant inside it, and the rib cage actually fed water the plant, so it's kind of like a little ecosystem inside the body. So there he was playing around with blendings and porosity again. Okay, sorry, move on. Erin decided to make an arm, her arm out of a cast. So there's her making her arm. Next slide, please. Roots from a tree that had fallen on the campus, and she filled the cast with these bits of tree root and then made some clear bioplastic and filled the cast with that bioplastic. Next slide, please. She also made a little bioplastic heart, and you can see then there the cast is filled with roots. Slide, please. And she took the cast away, and left behind was a representation of her arm that was filled with these roots from the tree. So she was again playing with this notion that humans are the material world. So playing around with the notion of the roots and the veins, the roots of a tree and the roots and the veins of her arm being similar, and showing that connection and the blending between there. So there's sort of multiple layers of understanding there. Have we nearly got to the end of the students? Next slide, please. This is an image that she took as well, playing around with that notion of how she and the plant world, through edibility, are joined. Okay, so the slide then. I think then we can take it over to questions. So what I noticed is that this caused, actually sorted the wheat from the chaff, I think, in a way, with the students. The students absolutely excelled to the point of sort of above and beyond, attending religiously where in other classes their attendance was quite poor, helping each other, collaborating with each other, sharing recipes with each other, inspiring each other. The feeling in the lab was one of freedom. People would bring their lunch in, and people were always there, and maybe coming and going, and then saying, I'm going to the library, and then coming back with readings, going, listen, everybody, I found this out. So we had this kind of research community where they were all trying to find solutions to create a visual representation of these ideas together, all coming up with very different ideas around a similar notion, collaborating with each other. Some were clearly leading others. They became confident in what they knew. Part of the final assessment for this was for them to set up an exhibition of their work that they had to explain. And so they demonstrated then that they were confident in their knowledge and also confident in their abilities as researchers on a particular subject. And they also became, I think they became critical practitioners, because some of them were really cross with what I was doing and challenged it directly. And in their exhibition, their final piece, they challenged it and said these ideas are nonsense, or these ideas are, haven't been thought through fully. And that was good. That was brilliant to see that they were reflecting on that. And some people were reflecting on how they'd been very challenged by this, so there was their reflexivity. So it was a kind of experiment in ways of engaging with anthropology students. I personally feel that this has been a great success, but I'm sharing my practice with you, and so I am vulnerable and ready to hear what you've got to say. So to you, I reckon. Good Lord, I've talked for long enough. Please, someone stop me.
Is it best if I just click everybody off mute so that everyone's sort of ready to jump in as and when they'd like to, and if anyone doesn't want to speak, as I say, just ping something into the comments box, and then I can read it out.
Sure. Okay, I'd be happy to have any feedback from any of you. Negative.
Can you hear me?
Just a little bit louder.
Louder. Yes, it's Mary Argyritis from Sunderland. I'm just upping the sound in case that affects you. I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Right.
Yep, me too.
That was interesting. Thank you very much. It is, I think, for the majority of us, I'm coming from a sort of slightly different angle. I'm taking now my discipline off, because you quite rightly, we're all locked in to our disciplines, and quite often these are also taught with the restriction, if you know, the constraints of an external accredited body and the constraints of the university regulations.
Yeah.
We don't have necessarily all the liberties that we would have liked to have. But in this cut off and trying to put a new coming up one, and that is how to embed sustainability in the university curriculum in all programs. I have recently volunteered, it's not materialized yet, but volunteered to look at it because of my discipline. I'm an environmental auditor and done quite a lot of health and safety as well. So it is all about sustainability, looking after your environmental impacts and your health impacts. And so I am driven by a systematic approach in my discipline, but it is a different problem to embed something so wide, changing to all aspects of the university life, and to all disciplines. With resistance, as you said, we are all tribal about our disciplines.
Yeah.
And so from that point of view, I am, I'm quite, I've taken a point which might be useful, I'm just wondering and thinking loudly how we can stimulate every single student on campus or off campus. I particularly deal with off-campus distance learners, all employed and managers. How do we stimulate every single one of them to do what you've done, back to practical, solution-based, put them out, and make them read their discipline to sustainability?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, this goes back to the beginning of what I was saying, is that learning is understood as a passive process, that somebody else is the expert who will tell you. And I think actually that's the pivotal point around which this functions. So as soon as students, students in HE, as soon as those students start to realise that they have come to university to generate and produce knowledge, not to acquire it, to be production line, you know, without getting Marxist, let's avoid that. That certain amount of information that they need to know to demonstrate, you know, benchmark statements and blah, 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 all that kind of thing. But the qualities of the individual, recognising that they are the motor, the future, they're the power. So that's what I think we should be inspiring our students to recognise, and that's why we need to move away from them sitting in chairs and listening to us, you know, blah, blah, blah. That they should be thinking, I'm at university and now I'm part of the community of people who seek solutions to those problems or to whatever is needed. And as soon as they recognise that, really from the day they walk through the door in the first year, I don't think we should be treating them as just extensions of school children. I think university should be the place where, if you want to find solutions to the world's problems, come to university. Not if you want to be, you know, I don't know, a geographer. You know, you be someone who wants to find the solutions through geography. Yes, so put power into the individual rather than this hierarchy. I mean, we're so stuck on hierarchies. I hate hierarchies. You know, this, I can tell you, I can advise you, I've done it. Yes, people have experience, and yes, we can benefit from their experience, but not in a hierarchical sense. We should be here together. So my drive, I'm actually to want to get rid of anthropology in some ways, because I think it's holding things back, that actually should just get people in to go, right, what's the problem that we want to look at?
I don't know if anybody else wants to chip in. I don't want to hijack that. I think quite a lot of stuff also comes from our clients these days, our students.
Sure.
They pay a lot of money.
Yes.
And some of the cultures, it's very difficult to say you're in control, you're a learner. But they say, you know, I paid that money, I want the information from you.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's a very difficult thing to do, especially on postgraduate. That I can't tell about undergraduates, but postgraduate level, I'm paying my money, I want this.
Sure. And it's a lot of money as well. It's not just a little bit of money. So I get that. And I think this is perhaps a slow process, and it's actually, it should be in the hands of the people in management to remarket their courses for. I mean, some universities can do some traditional thing if they want to, but I think other universities can new direction. And luckily, the dean of this faculty, well, he was the person who charged me with redeveloping the curriculum, and we're going to try and move the whole thing over to this system, that everybody here to do this, because I think it's time that institutions genuinely, instead of paying lip service to sustainability, genuinely woke up to the fact that education has to be delivered differently. It has to now, because otherwise we're just perpetuating the same stuff. The stuff that actually caused the problems, as far as I'm concerned. Level, I'm powerless in this hierarchy. I'm just, really trying to do something. But the people and the marketeers, they need to be the people who are saying to graduates, yeah, you can do a degree like that, or you can do a degree like this, in which case you'll come out sustainability literate. Be, you know, one of those powerful people who've got multiple skills, not just know about a subject, but know about a subject and be able to seek solutions and be able to work in groups and have leadership skills, as well perhaps as hard skills like IT skills or whatever might be in your package. And that's what we should be selling. Not like, oh, well, you'll be the same as all those other graduates. Where's the joy in that? What does that give anybody? Yeah, so
Liz, Quinn's sent a message to say she's somewhere loud, but she's got a question which I think is related to this, which is about how this was received by your peers, both within your department and across the whole university, and around whether others are adopting a similar approach. And also, she's also asked if it came up against any restrictions whilst you were trying to implement that new kind of course model. Yeah,
well, I have actually been quite lucky with my colleagues, and as I said, the dean very supportive. So I went to him and I said, I wanted, and he was like, oh, you're always so crazy. Okay, try it, sort of thing, and allowed me to experiment with it. And then with that, asked me to develop a document that explained to the rest of the faculty what was happening, with a view to create a model to move the entire faculty over to doing it. Now, yes, there's been resistance and there continues to be resistance. Resistance from people who teach languages because they think that can't do can't do what I'm suggesting while teaching languages. Well, okay, that's fine for me. I don't have any issue with that. Languages can do something else, if they really feel they need to. So I think there's room for 2 or 3 or more ways to go. Interestingly, some people had a kind of knee-jerk reaction, like, this is an outrage. We need the robust ways. We need letters. We need writing. We need, we need students to know this, and this kind of thing. And then I'd say, but you'd still be having all of that. You don't get rid of writing fully. You're just adding in new skills. And with quite a lot of discussion, a lot of meetings, a few voices, I think we've pretty much got the faculty on side, and we're thinking in the next year we should move over to this immersive system for the whole faculty. I think you need people top on side. If you haven't got that, then that's going to be really difficult for you. But I should buy it because I feel as if this could actually make this university stand out from others. If we make that bold step, universities are struggling at the moment. There are the smaller institutions are struggling, and so you need to make yourself, I suppose. And University of Wales has got a massive push towards sustainability. With our Inspire department. They're not called a department. Anyway, we've got kind of mission statement which is all about sustainability. And the Vice Chancellor is somebody who says this is actually the moment when I realised I could do something here, was when we were doing a State of the Nation speech from the Vice Chancellor, and he said, I want this place to be about transforming education. So I said, what do you mean transforming education? He said, anything you can think of, that's what I want. I genuinely want a transformation to education here. And that was like music to my ears, because I'd already had all these I was like, great, I can do this stuff. And that's when I went to the Dean and I said, blah, blah, blah. The Vice Chancellor says transforming education, so he said, all right, go and do it. So serendipity, maybe, I don't know, forward thinking Vice Chancellor, I don't know, I think most institutions, as there has been in this one, there is going to resistance. And the word robust will come up a lot. Like, is this educationally robust?
Yeah. Okay. We're almost at time. So has anybody got one last one last question they'd like to throw in.
Ways of anybody else? Any other ways of embedding sustainability in university, in learning, rather?
People who are listening in, you mean?
Yeah. Because I can see, have you got lots of foreign students in Zimbabwe?
Actually, we've got some. Yeah, we have got some, but
Information means it's accepted from other cultures.
well, it means that. I don't know. I think we're quite we've got quite an international student body, especially anthropology. It attracts quite a lot.
Yeah. Any other models from delegates?
I think CAFRA actually they're in noisy places, so they can't connect the audio. But perhaps when I send round the follow-up to this email, Lucy, do you mind if I include your email on there, so that if anyone's got any questions or anything like that, we can carry on. And by all means, if you want me to share anything with the group, any ideas or documents from any of you in this webinar, then feel free to send them to me, and I can pass them all on.
Great, thank you. I do think it's really important that we do share practice. So I think Mary's point is important, and it's kind of something that I wanted a little bit from today. I want to know what other people are doing. I think we should share that, and we should know, we'd maybe create some kind of network where we know what we're doing, so that we can take that to our managers and a bit more, for change, because I think the change will come from us.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, if everybody, I know that obviously it's a bit of an issue with sort of sharing emails, but if everybody is happy for me to kind of create one email group with all of you in, perhaps you could do that, because I know Quinn's just sent a message saying she can share some links on the work that NUS is doing, and perhaps if other people want to feed into that as well. So if I say that's what I'll do, and if anybody doesn't want me to sort of put you into the group, if you could just ping me an email after this and just say don't include me, but otherwise I'll pop you in, and then you can start a discussion and share some resources between you.
Oh, thank you.
And then we can, the things that come from that, obviously we can upload onto the Sustainability Exchange as well, so that they can go broader than just this group as well. So we'll get onto that.
Thank you.
Okay, right, well, thank you ever so much, Lucy, for sharing your thoughts and ideas and everything today, and thank you everybody for joining us. And I will send a link round to the podcast so that you can share with colleagues after we've hung up. It will take a couple of hours to upload, but I will send it round later this afternoon.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Thanks everyone. Thanks. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.